Green is on. You know that much.
Good morning, well, this is not morning. Good afternoon.
There you go.
Welcome to Christ Church for our community here. Pastor Dr. Frank M. Smith Jr. is the pastor here. And we have a recovery ministry called Empowering Victims of Addiction. I'm going to first give you we have services here. We have a service 10:15 on Sundays, 10:15 a.m. every Sunday. We invite you to join either on YouTube or come in person. We also have a Thursday evening Bible study, intercessory prayer meeting that goes on here at Christ Church. And then we have a Friday night Bible study that's going on. I believe that's at 7 p.m. So we have a couple of things that we do. And then on Thursdays at noon, we have Empowering Victims of Addiction AA meeting that meets here at the church. But today, we are here with two of the members of Christ Church for our community, Brother Wallace Duncan, Brother Jim Strickland, two faithful members here at the church, and they have some powerful testimonies and things in their life that they are willing to share and in hopes to help somebody else in recovery. So we're getting ready to interview them. We're just going to interview them and let them share their stories on this recovery situation in this country, in our city, in our lives. And this touches us in many ways. You might know somebody. You know somebody who knows somebody, but we're touched by it in some kind of way. So, Brother Wallace, we're gonna start with you.
Okay.
And just now, what age were you when you started using alcohol?
Well, I never really knew that until I went to the healing place, and they got a step program. And one of the steps is doing a personal inventory. Once I got involved into the healing place and I got to my fourth step, I had to do an inventory. And one of the things you have to inventory yourself and ask, when was your first drink? I couldn't remember that. When I showed up at the healing place, I was 52 years old, and I couldn't remember the time I took my first drink. But I remember something happened in 1968 when Martin Luther King got killed. And I was 10 years old, and people's riding around rioting, and cars was on fires, and people's breaking in pawn shops and stuff. But me and my friend, we was on bikes. We was running in the store getting beer. I do remember that. And like I said, I was 52 years old, and at the healing place, I said, wow, I've been drinking for more than 42 years and never paid it attention, never even looked at it. But at the age I was, when things changed in my life, we moved into Ed Allen. Like I said, in 6 days, it was a big change. I started drinking before I started anything else, so cigarettes, smoking weed, anything. My first thing wasn't alcohol. That's why I identify myself as Wallace. I'm an alcoholic. And I just thank God that for the healing place, because had it not been for the healing place, I'd probably still been out there. And one thing I learned in this journey I've been on in recovery, my sobriety date, as they would say at the healing place, is October the 8th, 2010. And I got there and because I wanted something different. I was tired of not having nothing. I lived out there and I always lived with somebody. And one thing I learned at the healing place, I was homeless, but didn't even know it, because I always had some place to go and sleep at, my sister's house or a woman's house, but I wasn't on the streets, but I was out there. I was homeless. And the healing place is one of the things that you will hear me talk a lot about, because had it not been for the healing place, I don't know where I've been at. But God had brought me through some amazing journey. And one thing that I learned led me to the healing place when I started smoking crack. I started smoking crack at 52. At 32. I was 32 years old, fresh out of prison, tried to crack from 32 to 52, and I lost it all. Lost everything but my mind. And I woke up one day and had some money. And went downtown and had over $5,000 on the Tuesday. And come Friday morning, I didn't have bus fare. And I called a friend. My friend said, call Pastor Smith. And I called him. I called Pastor. He said, where you at? I gave him the address. He said, okay, I'll be there in a couple of hours. And I'll spend the last 100 on some more dope. And I said on the table, I'm getting ready to hit it, start smoking as I knock at the door. And they said, wow, there's some man at the door. Look for it. I said, for me? Pastor ain't been off the phone 15 to 20 minutes, but he'll be there in a couple hours. So my man tell me I got time to do this. And I walked to the door, and there was Pastor. And when you're smoking crack, you can't talk. You know, mouth twisted and all that old stuff, nonsense that goes with it. And he looked me straight in my face and said, are you ready? I looked down at the dope. I looked up at him, and I walked. I said, yeah. You know, and on that day, there was a journey that God took me on, and it led me to look at me differently. Like I said, I had $5,000 that Tuesday. Friday morning, I didn't have bus fare. And when Pastor picked me up, he brought me out to the church. He said, are you hungry? And I grinned. I haven't ate nothing since Tuesday. I was just drinking and smoking and drinking, throwing up, dry heaving. And Pastor bought us breakfast, and we come over into church, and we sit there for a couple of hours. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know what to do. He suggested the healing place. I've heard about it. And when it coming from him, it sounded like a good idea. So I tried, and I did, you know, and that was the beginning of turning the pages in my life. Because at the healing place, you live recovery. You live it.
So,
you see it.
So back up for a minute. You said, where were you when he came? Where were you when he came to get you?
I was down on 24th and Jefferson.
But you were you at the
crack house?
At the crack house.
Yeah.
So Pastor Smith,
yes, he did,
walked up in the crack
yes,
house.
Sir. Yes, he walked he come up the back, come around the side of the place. So, like I said, he come down in the jungle amongst a lot of woods and land, and he was a sheep. And he, I don't know, no fur or whatever. It was just a God thing. And he told me he'd be there in a couple of hours. And this was in a few minutes, you know, just to see if I was ready or whatever. And he did. So
Pastor Smith, he's about that life, man. He
he
ain't scared, huh?
No. He sure did. He came in the jungle and got me. He sure did. They said some Wallace, like I said, 10, 15 minutes. And said, a man looking for me. I said, who, you know? Like I said, when you smoke crack, you can't talk. It messes with your face and muscle. Wow. I'll explain that to you later on.
Okay.
But he looked at me, and my lips, you can't talk. He said, you ready? Yeah. I just made the decision on that spot. It was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I was 52 years old and acting like a child. And because one thing I learned in recovery, once you get recovered, they said, you act like you did when you took your first drink or your first hit. You go back to that age. And I was 10 years old. And that's how I was acting my whole life, like a kid, lost in a world of confusion. But I thought I was just hurting myself. I ain't hurting nobody but me, you know. I lied to my mothers, my sisters, my brother, my ex-wife, my kid. I lied to everybody. And I believed the lies I told.
Yeah.
I lied so much, and I believed it. When somebody come, well, you said this. No, I didn't, you know. Yes, you did, blah, blah, blah. And it comes back, you know. But the healing place put me on the journey that, you know, it wasn't nothing but a God-given. Like I said, he came down there amongst the woods. Sure did. He wasn't scared, wasn't nervous, and I didn't think he was coming there quick because I had $100 bill left.
Right. I'm tripping off that one, man, because I have been in crack houses, but I was in them as a police officer in full uniform with a gun, a taser, with OC spray. I had all kind of weapons and things, and he walked up in there with his Bible.
Yes, it sure did. And it knocked on the door. It's around the back, on the side, up some steps. And always one thing about the crack house, it's always somebody outside.
Yeah.
That's the one that, you know, they're gonna give you a hit, you get somebody coming by. And it's a game of life, but in the wrong way.
Wow.
And there's so many people, you know, that's out there, but I lived it, you know, and he did, you know. And that's something, you know, we sitting back in the back and talk. He fed me stuff, and he asked, was I ready to do something different? And I said yes. And he suggested the healing place. And I was wanting to go home and try to get some clothes, explain, because I was living with someone who was a member of the church at that time. And And he said, no, we're going to go ahead and go now. I'll take care of that. And he took me from the church down there. And he walked there with me while I signed in, told him what I've been doing and stuff. And okay, they got a bed for me. And he asked me, is there anything you need me to do? You need anything? They said, no, he don't need nothing. We got everything he need right here. I said, just ask the church to pray for me. He never uttered one word about where I was at, what I was did, but I did find out he asked for that prayer, and the church prayed for him, I would be ever grateful to him, and his wife for allowing him to come, because if a preacher's wife knows the actions out there, she probably told him bring somebody with him, don't go down there alone, because it's a lot of robbing and
Yeah.
But once you get in there, once you're known around there, I walk straight in, no fear, because I'm doing what they doing.
Right.
If you play this game, you know how it's played. If you don't, you're lost, and you're a sheep amongst wolves, and they will take advantage of you.
Okay.
But it's been an amazing journey, though. And there's a lot I could share on that. Like I said, had not I smoked crack, I probably still been drinking. Because, like I said, my first thing was a drink.
Yeah.
But had I not I smoked crack, I probably still been drinking.
Yeah.
I just felt like that.
We're gonna come back and let you explain that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get Brother Jim in here and ask a question here. So whenever we're in recovery here. So Brother Jim, what was the turning point that made you decide to seek help for your addiction, and how did your faith in AA support that decision?
Well, Brother T, I had seen with my own eyes where my life had descended from. I guess you might say, or at least I look successful. I came from a so-called mom and pop family, grew up going to church since birth, went to college, finished high school, had a 10-year career in the Marine Corps and was discharged honorably and came out and got into the computer industry, sort of living the American dream, own property, own cars, but then comes this drug addiction. And it really took me down in a hurry. So everything, all those things that I mentioned that I had lost them all. And by the time I made it to the Healing Place, I'm a Healing Place alumni also. Everything that I owned would fit in a plastic garbage bag. That was the contrast. I went from all to nothing, literally. Literally. And to the point where I had good paying jobs all my life in the IT industry, such things as I would get paid on a Friday and all the money be gone. I'll share with you all, I would have take home pay of $3,000 on a Friday afternoon. By the time Sunday rolled around, just a mere 48 hours later, so to speak, I didn't have enough money to afford 2 White Castles. The addiction is merciless. It takes all. It doesn't want any so-called prisoners. It's in it for life. It's do or die. So I went from that, literally saw it from my own perspective, knew how I was raised, how I grew up, the things that I had attained in life, and to go from that to nothing was very shocking. And quickly I saw that I was extremely destitute. And I was living here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I think this gentleman now, I think within the last week or so, he went on to glory. Mr. James, who used to run the detox unit at the Healing Place. I remember one Saturday calling him and confessing my predicament, what had happened. And I didn't have any worldly material goods any longer. I had smoked it all up, and I knew I needed help. And by the time also, I might mention, by the time I got to Louisville, Kentucky, I had gone through previous rehab programs. I think about 3. So Healing Place was my 4th. I was really determined to be the best addict I could, and I did all I could in my power to remain that way. But it seems that God didn't want me to do that, and He was able to overcome that addiction. So that night, I called Mr. James at the Healing Place. I said, "Man, I have nothing. I've smoked it all up. The man's coming tomorrow to repossess my car." And he said, "Just bring yourself, and whatever clothes you got on." He said, "Don't worry about toothbrushes, none of that stuff. We'll take care of that." And they certainly did. And I reported down to the Healing Place. And you really have to, the thing the Healing Place teaches you is to live a life of recovery. And the story I just mentioned to you, that was 25 years ago, but I'm still living that life of recovery this very day in 2025. And that has to remain. You have to find a new way of living. I grew up in the church. My mother took us to church every Sunday, and I had a great faith foundation. So I certainly knew the good from the bad. I knew what good living was, and I knew the bad. So I missed the comfort of being secure in what I had, my possessions and whatnot. So I knew when I had fallen tremendously, and I thank God that I knew the way back home. Sort of reminds me of that story of the prodigal son. That was me. I had squandered all of my wealth out in the world and was out in the muck in the mire with the pigs. And I thank God that He gave me the so-called willingness to come back to Him. Yeah.
Can you describe some of the most challenging moments in your recovery and how you stayed grounded in those times?
Some of the most challenging moments, basically dealing with other people's behaviors and their emotions quite often. I can remember at the Healing Place every evening they had a coin telephone, and you would have about 12 guys lined up to use that phone. And the man who was the overseer in the overnight section of the program at that time, he would always say that telephone causes more relapses than anything else. And people get on the phone and talk to girlfriends and wives, and they want to fix, manage, and control what's going on back home or out there. And they haven't gotten to the point where they can control themselves. They have no self-control. So that's a challenge, is to sometimes you just got to totally separate, like myself, separate myself from my family for, I think it was a total of 2 years. Like I mentioned before, if I didn't, I'm from Cincinnati. But I had to have a complete geographic shift or change in order to make this transition. Then there's the thing, the Healing Places environment. You're in there with a bunch of other guys, whole bunch of personalities, all types of people, places, and things go on in there. And a great friend of mine, I still talk to him today. He would always say, trust the process. Because when you're going through that recovery thing, it can be very dark. It can be full of a lot of anxiety and the unknown. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what to do. And he would always say, trust the process. And I carry that thought with me today. I don't know what today holds, tomorrow holds, but I'm in today. I have to stay in today, and I have to let God handle that part that's unknown, that hasn't arrived yet. Trusting the process is trusting God, quite simply. And we have to get out of the habit of fix managing and controlling everything around us.
So, Brother Wallace, let me come back to you. You mentioned some things when you spoke before. Can you tell us a few things where using substances, where it led you? Where did it lead you?
Where did it lead me to? It led me to a life that I never knew existed until I went down that road. Like Brother Jim said, I had went to treatment 2 times before I made it to the healing place, but it was a 30-day thing over charter. And in '94, I was a forklift operator at a Hunter Glass and drive forklift. If you have an accident, you got to give a urine test. And I took a urine test and came back where I'd been smoking crack and stuff. And on that spot, the lady, her name was Rose, and she said, well, do you want to go into treatment or lose your job? So treatment sounded like a good idea then, and I accepted that. And I went out to charter. That was in '94, and I got married in '94. I got married, it was July the 24th, and all of this happened like 8 weeks before my marriage day and stuff. And I went into treatment. My wife, she came up there and stuff. And the biggest thing that hurt that lady was the lies I told. I told so many lies, and I did, and I believed the lie. Well, anyway, I got out, and it was like 2 weeks before my wedding. And when you get out of treatment, they said go to 90 meetings in 90 days, but I'm still off of work on short-term disability. You get 6 weeks off with pay. So I got 2 weeks left. But then after that 2 weeks, I'm on 2 weeks vacation because I'm getting married, July 24th. And I got married that day. I had a big Catholic wedding and stuff, and my family was there, her family was there, and they had a bar. They had a bar, so like I said, I ain't drunk nothing, but it's my wedding date, and we're going to give the toast. And my wife looked at me and said, well, you can have one. Okay, but I didn't know that then. Okay, but I knew it led up to that one. I'd get to that later on. And I had that one turned into 2, turned into 4. Now I'm dancing. We had a wedding. We having a good time. And at the end of the wedding, it was cleanup time. So she said, would you go ahead and take all the gifts and all the envelopes and stuff? They gave us the envelopes and stuff. And you go on home, I'm going to stay and help clean up. And I said, okay. So I'm out here on Chevyville Road someplace at the reception. And I said, well, 9 o'clock, I can run down and do a quick 20. Granted, I got money in my pocket. These envelopes got money. I got all these wedding presents. And I went down there. It's my wedding night. And next thing I know, everything was gone. It's Tuesday morning now. I ain't been out of the crack house. This is my wedding night. I ain't been out of the crack house. Because as long as you got money, they'll go get it for you. They'll bring it to you. Call somebody. And like I said, my wedding night. And I showed up at home Tuesday with the tuck on, hair nappy, tuck, wrinkled, breath stinking. I ain't brushed my teeth or nothing. All I wanted to do was just smoke, because once you take that first one, it takes you. And the body takes over the mind. The body's thinking, you can do one more. I wasn't worrying about the time, because already the time done gone. There was Sunday, and there was Monday, and there was Tuesday, and all the money's gone. All the wedding gifts gone. Ain't no place left but home. And I showed up with my key in the door, and that woman stood there. How could you? I don't know. I don't know what happened. You know what happened. You already know what you did. I ain't been out of treatment 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm still on vacation. Before I went back to work, I was back getting high and stuff. And I went back right where I started at, because they said once you relapse, you go right back where you was, and worse. It get worse and never better. I learned all of that later on, but I didn't know then. So, and that woman stayed, and I asked her, I said, why did you stay after all this? After all I done did to you and everything. She said, because I love you. I never knew what love was, that someone could love you like that, because she couldn't have did that to me, and I'd have been waiting there with open arms, but she forgave me, and I took advantage of that. That means, like I said, that once I got to the healing place, and they have a saying, 1,000 is not enough, but that one is too many. That's why I'm getting back to that one. I'm running out here and do one. It never fails. You do one until there ain't no more money for one more. Then you're sitting in the crack house, all the money's gone, everybody's sitting around. What you get ready to do? Now it's time for you to go because everything is gone. But, like I said, it took me on the journey to where my ex-wife, she's my friend today. Today, we got grandkids together and stuff. And she asked me about 5 or 6 years in my recovery, how come you couldn't be that man today that you are now? How come you couldn't be that man back then? And I just told her that wasn't the journey God had planned for me. I had to go through what I went through to become the person I am today. And like Big Jim said, trust the process. And when I was down there in the process, there's a guy named Joe that facilitated the class. He always wrote this sentence up on the board. He said, every morning, the program is a sequel of events that will occur that leads to a conclusion. I never knew what that was until I got into the program. And I did, and I saw the transformation. I was starting to feel it. I was always the one in the back of the class. Then I got to hearing stuff that I have done from somebody that I never knew. Like you said, in the healing place, there were a lot of people that you don't know. They said we are people that normally wouldn't mix, and we didn't. But once we get sober, they said the fog lifted, start lifting after 90 days, and your mind started to come back and brain started. Now I got to understand everything that they was telling me, what they showed me. I wouldn't trade that for nothing in the world, because had it not been for the healing place, do I think I'd be here today? Probably not. What's going on in the world today are drugs. It's a disease. I never knew it was a disease. I never knew that I had a disease that was incurable. And they got a saying in the big book saying, how that goes? Oh, wow, I can't think of it. It come to me, but it's a statement that's made in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to tell us, it'll come to me because I stand on that principle today too. You can only do so much, but without you, and it's got to be with God. It said, because if you don't bring God into recovery, it's a fail. You lose. It's a fixed fight. If God's not in it, you lose. That's gonna come to me because I stand on that principle today. I learned at the healing place, and so because they said this is not a religious program, but we're gonna talk about God. Because without God, it's virtually impossible to beat the disease of addiction. I never knew I had a disease. They talk about the man in the big book. He's got cancer. Everybody's sorry for him, the family, the wives, the kids, because everybody knows cancer. There's really no cure for it, but you can live with it. But not so for the alcoholic, because we got warped lives and blameless children. The alcoholic hurts people, and hurt people hurt people. We drink to escape. We drink for the effect of it, how it makes me feel now. I never knew that I was trying to escape from something, and it was just me. I never got to know me. Like you said, I come up in the church too. And we lived with my grandmother. We was going to church Sunday night, Sunday morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, then go clean up the church on Thursday. And I heard something at an early age. And as I got older, and I started making a change in my life, a whole lot come back to me today. And I just thank God that I was able enough to recognize and realize what was going on afterwards. But you have to go to it. God's got a plan for you, but to get to it, you're going to have to go through it. And I went through a living hell. I went through a journey that's beyond me, 4 DUIs. And my first DUI, like I said, I just gotten out of prison in August of 90. And I called my first DUI, was like October of 90. And they sent me to the healing place to do 40 hours community service. But I wasn't there trying to get sober. I just was there for this reason only, get the paper signed and go back to work, save your job type of thing. But and I always heard something in there, but I wasn't ready for it. I had to go back out there and experiment some more, to live a life that wasn't me. Then when you can, like I said, you can look at the mirror and see you, but as soon as you walk away, you forget what you look like. And I was caught up like that because I walk in the crack house, And people say, well, you don't look like a crackhead. And my stupid thing was, say, well, how do a crackhead supposed to look? But as long as you got money and you smoking, come on in, pull up a chair and work yourself at home. And that's what I did, you know. And I thank God he allowed me to go so far to where he said enough is enough. You know, it's a lot of Christian songs I was telling you about earlier. There's a lot of songs I hear today that I apply in my recovery. You know, you told us one day in church you was preaching, you said, find you a song. He said, find you. I said, well, Brother T, what if I got more than one song? You know, because I had a lot of them, you know, and I just thank God that I can realize that and recognize that today, because when you're caught up in the grip of a disease that gets tighter, it gets worse, it gets never better, never get better. I get paid on Friday, like Jim said, you know, and I go home broke, you know, Friday night or Saturday morning. I ain't doing this no more. I'm through with that. Tell my wife, I'm in it. I meant I wasn't going to do it. But come Wednesday, your mind's starting to play tricks with you. You don't realize it. Well, maybe I just get a 40-pack or 30-pack of beer, and I'm going home, give her the money. So I'm in the house. But after about that fourth or fifth beer, I said, where's my money? She knew I had a problem before I did. That woman used to say, when you come in this house with that beer, I know this is the beginning of a long weekend. And she was right, but I didn't see it. She did. And she wasn't the one with the problem. I was, because it's a disease. The disease concept of it it's amazing. Like I said, it's a lot of places you can't get recovery, but I truly recommend the Healing Place. I truly do, because there's a journey that's beyond belief there. You live it, you smell it, you do it, you're part of it. And you don't come immune to it, you come used to it. And once you start to pray and ask God to show you things, and he reveals it. You gotta have your eyes open and your mind clear now to recognize it. It's an amazing journey though, you know, but I just thank God I made it through.
So you touched on this a little bit, Brother Jim. On your perspective, what role does spirituality and your connection to a higher power continue to play in your ongoing sobriety?
Again, I'll draw from my experience at the Healing Place, because it still plays a tremendous part in my life this very moment. And I can remember going to the classes and the instructor there saying, if you miss the spiritual part of the program, you've missed the program. And that stuck to me like glue. And it still sticks to me today. I've had a couple decades since those days at the Healing Place to mature and to dwell in this word that I was taught there. You have to keep an open mind about it, very much so. Addicts are very stubborn people. They're so stubborn they can't see. They can't see themselves, and they can't see other people. I remember it being said during that journey at the Healing Place, when the student is ready, the teacher shall appear. And that's what it was like for me. Brother Wallace mentions he was in his 50s when he got to the Healing Place. So was I. I turned 50 years old at the Healing Place. That tells me a lot that one thing, boys are slow to mature. My mother used to always say that, and many other mothers, I'm sure, would agree the same thing. And it's true, but we are slow, but we do recover. Once we open our eyes and we become ready, we become willing, we do recover. And I was mentioning to some folks yesterday on a little statement I made on Facebook that I've never been lucky. I've never been lucky. But since birth, I've been abundantly blessed. And that's the difference between the two. I've had many blessings since finishing that program. and advancing to this part in my life. Therefore, I was grounded in spirituality as a kid growing up back in the 60s. I'm still there today. And I sit here today to tell you that if you miss the spiritual part of recovery, you're going to miss the entire program. So the Spirit is there to guide you and to lead you and to teach you and to mature you. And as a result of that process, and it's a long process also, you're going to have your challenges. You're going to be tested. Those things have to happen. If you're not tested, you won't have a testimony. So you got to be tested. And once you are, say, successful at this test, then you got another test after that. And I forget, well, I think it was Joyce Myers used to say different levels, different devils. And it's like that in life. You sort of a stair-step process. And once you get something behind you, there are further challenges, and you just keep, maturing through that process and getting better and better. So it is here today, all these years, 25 years later. Since that time, it's a lot easier. It's peaceful. My life is peaceful. It is not as hectic. I can make clear, conscientious decisions now. And I'm not chasing some dream. I know who's the holder of my dreams, and that is Jesus Christ our Lord. That's my higher power.
All right. All right. I appreciate it. I just want to make one little statement as we continue on. Both of you have had successful experience at the healing place, but I want to make sure that we make it clear to the audience, we're not promoting and saying you have to go to the healing place, or this is not a interview for the healing place. This is not an interview to come to empowering victims of addiction at Christ Church for our community. This is a meeting to talk about recovery and going somewhere to get some help, whether it's the healing place or some other place, Tim Brook or wherever. This meeting is to say, get some help somewhere. So this isn't a promotion for the healing place, and we're doing this interview. I know you've had success there, so I just want to make that clear as we continue on.
Okay,
And I don't think you thought that, but I just want to make it clear to maybe listeners who may be thinking that that's what we're doing. We want people who are struggling with addiction to get help somewhere. All right. So, Brother Wallace, what finally, led you to get on the track, where you are now, a new way of living, and to get there and be consistent? And what finally led you?
What led me there? Like I said, though, I showed up at the healing place. It was in 2002, but it was October. Now, early 2010, my oldest brother, he had passed, My mother was sick and stuff, and I was in the struggle out there. I could go to mama's house and I'd tell her lie for $20, $30, whatever. And like I said, he had passed, but in that summer, say early July, I was downtown where I hang at, neighborhood I grew up in, down in the Russell area and stuff. And I had been out for 3 days on the bend. I'd been out just smoking and drinking and smoking. No one knew I was there, and people worry about us. We don't know that because when you chasing one more, you don't think about it. Anyway, I was over in the alley getting high with this brother. He was drinking and smoking weed. I'm drinking beer, and I bought a piece of dope. So I'm going to the crack house. This is, so I go through the alley, and there's a guy down there that we grew up together, and he always talk. I used to do this. I whooped him, and made him used to go around and rounds about who always came out on top on these fights and stuff. But he wasn't smoking crack like I was. And I bought me a 40-cent piece of dope. And I told this other guy, if he starts talking that fight, I use other words, I'm gonna hit him in his mouth. And as soon as I walk in there, he come here, I whooped him, I did this, and I hauled off and I hit him. And believe me, I got a piece of dope. I've been up for 3 days, and I hit him in the mouth. And he pulled out his gun, he just started shooting. Bam, bam, bam. He shot about 9 to 10 times. I'm in the alley, no trees, no cars, nothing around. But I held on to the dope. And after about that 6 or 7 shots, I said, oh, F. I turned around and walked while he was still shooting. You know, insane. That's the insane part of this disease, you know. So I get on up to the crack house, you know, we sitting there, we smoking this thing, and I felt my feet was wet. We ain't had no rain in a couple of weeks. I said, well, my feet is wet. So I pulled up my pants leg, and I said, damn, he did shoot me. And I know the adrenaline's going, you know, but I held on to the dope. And I got to the crack house, I took a hit, I laid back. Like I said, you can't talk, but I can feel my feet is mushy. And he did shoot me. And another friend came up there and got me that heard about it. He said, man, I heard you got shot. I said, no, I didn't get shot, blah, blah. And the dude out the house, he said, yes, did. Look at his leg. So he looked. I just bought this dope, and I'm sitting there with the pipe in my hand, dope on the table. He knocks everything out of my hand, the dope on the floor. Now me and him get ready to fight. He came to get me, he did it. But when that happened, you know, your mind just go, because that was the last piece. That was the last money. He said, no, man, you need to go to the hospital. You could have hurt your mother. You could have got killed. You just buried your big brother and this and that, and all that went into my head. So I said, okay, let him take me to the hospital. I went down there to U of L and stuff. He dropped me off. He takes off. Oh, I've been shot. They asked you a lot of questions and stuff to get your background stuff. They saw it. And I was in the room. They took me, had put a gown on me and stuff, and had MRIs and stuff. And he said it was a clean shot. It didn't hit nothing. And I looked at the hole. It went in and came out. You know, so I'm sitting in this room, and a lady was telling me that they'd be back here with the results and this and that. Gave me a tetanus shot. And on the way out the door, she said some words like, oh, by the way, the police will be here in 10 minutes. I said, police? Who called the police? She said, we did. We got to call the police if there's a gunshot wound. I said, okay, my man, like I said, I've been up. You know, I want one more. And I said, excuse me, ma'am, where's your restroom at? She said, down there to the left. She went down there and she went right. I went down there and went left, put my clothes on and left. I left the hospital. And to this day, I never heard nothing about that. I was living with somebody, but I didn't go home. I go back down here where I just got shot at, getting high and stuff. And Christ Church was holding a fundraiser. I mean, a women's retreat that year, and I had volunteered to help out. And I came down there, holding my legs. But long as it's elevated, don't bleed. I went to my mother's house. She didn't know I was shot or not. Nobody in my family knew I got shot. And I went on up there, and I ran into you up there. I said, I told you about it, you know, thinking the police are going to come at any time. You know, I talked to you about it. They never showed up. I never heard nothing about that. And so I was delusional, out of my mind, back down there the next day. And all I want to do is apologize to him, because if I don't hit him, he don't shoot me. Now, it was my fault, you know, and I did not realize that then that God was doing something that I didn't recognize until I got sober. You know, because I was prayed for. I went to church. I knew people say, you lucky to be alive. No, I'm blessed to be alive. Because had not been for God, if that bullet would have hit anywhere on my body earlier than where it did, my leg probably would have been tore off. I probably would have died. You know, and like I said, nobody in my family knew nothing about that. Nobody. And I'm right in my neighborhood, and everybody knows me, and they know him. And I saw his brother when I was drinking with before I did that. I said, all I want to do is apologize, man, because if I don't hit him, he don't shoot me. Well, he think I was coming back for retaliation. So I said, no, I just want to be man enough to admit I was wrong. But still kept on getting high. You know, like I said, no, that was like October, that was in 2010. But to back up a little bit, when I lived over here in Bridgewood, it was 2008, when I was invited to this church. I came to this church for about 6 months, and I got baptized like February 2008. But I kept playing with the devil. Can't serve two gods. You're gonna be, ain't no middle of the road solutions. You're gonna be in it or you're gonna be out of it. But I kept coming to church. I would party Friday and Sunday, but I came to church Sunday. You know, I just learned that when God has something for you and you recognize it, all you got to do is just go get it. You know, peace be still. I know what that means. You know, because I had to do was be still. I heard it all. I was here, like I said, for 2 years on that journey, but I was getting high. But I was coming to church, getting high, coming to church for 2 years. And I did. And that was just an amazing journey. I look at today, like I said, God's got a blessing with your name on it. But sometimes, you know, to get to it, you're going to go through it. And I went through it. And right to this day, I know I'm alive by a loving God who cared for me. My grandmother's prayer, my mother's name prayer, everybody that prayed for me by coming to church and just listening. I lived over, and that was a journey within itself. I still was running with the devil, you know, and still doing that. But I heard that message because God, He will get it to you if you're paying attention, you know, and you just got to be willing and wanting to change. Because they tell you down there, change I must or die I will, you know. And one thing about smoking crack, there's a guy, he's dead now, James Burns Bread. He was the doctor that wrote it down and said, what are you talking about? Give yourself a stroke. He said, I know all your muscles and stuff get twisted, you can't talk. He said, that's the sign of a stroke. I said, wow, I've seen that. I knew that, but I didn't know that was I was paying for. I paid good money for that, but God brought me through that. God allowed me to do that, and mouth get twisted. You can't talk. You can't do a lot of stuff. And to realize that I had a disease that was beyond my control, it was controlling me. You know, I said, yeah, I'm a man. You know, I ain't hurting nobody but myself. But I hurt a whole lot of people: my mother, my sisters, my kids, my grandkids. I was right across the street from my daughter's house where the crack house is. And Mama, there go granddaddy in that crack house, you know. And I called myself sneaking out. She'll run over, look at you. I can't talk. I can't say a word, you know. But it was a journey I'll never forget. And if there's anything I could say to anybody on, only way you're gonna get recovered is with God. They can't get you no shot for it. Ain't no pills. Can't nobody do me like Jesus. They mean it. Yeah, it's an amazing journey, man, to be on.
Wow. Okay. So, Brother Jim, what advice or insight would you offer someone who's just beginning their recovery journey, feeling uncertain, feeling overwhelmed? What would you say to them?
The first thing I would say to them is get yourself a sponsor like Brother Wallace here to help you walk through these steps, to help you walk through life, to give you experience, strength, and hope when you do face challenges in life, and to take their advice, to approach them with open ears and an open heart so that you may recover successfully.
Brother Wallace, same question. What advice would you give somebody who's just starting?
Somebody just started, you got to be open-minded. They said, they call it HOW, H-O-W, honest, open-minded, and willing. Because one thing that they do at the healing place, they don't tell you how to recover. They give you suggestions on ways to go to recover. Because everything you've been through, somebody at the healing place has been there. And I thought all these guys was guys that went to college and had degrees and stuff. But like I said, I was there for a whole year. And after about 5 or 6 months, I realized they was addicts that stayed around, called perimeters, and some of them work in the office, some of them run the healing place now. They are all addicts. They've been where you've been at. And the one thing about this, they will not lie to you if your mind is open and willing to accept it, because some of us don't want to accept the truth. You know, sometimes they say the truth hurts, and it does. You know, but if you're willing to accept that truth, you know, you'll be willing to take them suggestions. They got suggestions for you, you know.
Right. So one thing I noticed as I've been in and out of different meetings, different places, I see men, I see women, I see black, white, red, brown, purple, yellow. I see every kind of looking person. Some who have rich or have some money, and some who don't. I've seen. What about that? Is it, to talk about how it doesn't discriminate?
The disease of addiction does not discriminate. I recall my days going through recovery. Yeah, there was a pilot there. There was a dentist. There was a internal medicine guy. There was even a preacher there when I went through the healing place. And this disease does not discriminate. It don't care what family background you come from, how much money you've made, where you graduated from college, who you marry. You could be chairman of the board. It's coming for you. And that's why we get these people coming from various backgrounds, and we all intermingle at places like the healing place. And when we do get together, there's a bond that's created amongst us all. And as a result of doing that, that bond establishes our journey into recovery and makes that change successful. Because once we go into recovery, we strain all kinds of relationships. You know, a lot of marriages have come apart behind this. A lot of so-called pain has been inflicted on brothers and sisters and mothers and so on and so forth. I even think that when my addiction overtook me, it even affected the entire city of Louisville. When I got here, I didn't know anybody, but once I got in the program at the healing places, I learned about a lot of people, and they learned about me. So yeah, this disease, in actuality, affects everybody and everything that you're a part of.
All right, Bro Wallace, you got anything on that?
Yeah, you know, like he was saying, you know, we lie to ourselves. We can believe the lie. I learned that you got to be willing to listen. You got to be, your mind's not open to it, you're going to miss it. If you missed the spiritual part, you missed it. I didn't know what that meant in the beginning. You know, about me being in church as much as I was, those 2 years, from 2008 to 2010, when I joined this church, I seen the effect of God. I allowed myself to recognize it. But when you're running on self, you know, any life that runs on self is hardly success, you know. And I can tell myself, I'm not going to do this today, and I won't, because I ain't got no money. But as soon as that paycheck hit the bank and I got access to some money, the whole thought process changed. You got to surrender. You got to be willing to surrender. And when I first heard that word surrender, it was in this church by another member. He was celebrating 8 years or so. Right now, they got 23. And I was still in the struggle. And I asked him at the end of church that day, I said, tell me something. How did you do that? How'd you get that 8 years? He said, I surrender all to God. You know, I said, okay. And I didn't know nothing about that because I was still running after a plan to God sent another friend over there, knocked on my door, and they was just coming together. But I had to peace be still and be willing to learn and listen, because we could be sitting there getting high, smoking dope, you know, girls having fun, and we doing this, we doing that. He's quoting me scriptures out of the Bible. And the Bible ain't in front of him. And I was just amazed at that. I'm high, and my mouth can't trust it. How did you do that? How could you tell me? Then show me what you just spoke about. And he would take me to the Bible. He said, go to church, go to Sunday school, go to Wednesday night prayer and stuff. So I wanted to learn more about that. And I did. And it started right here. This church opened my life and my eyes up to a whole lot of stuff that I knew as a child, that I heard before. You know, and I came to Bible study. They had it on Wednesday night. It was me, it's about 6 or 7 women, you know. Jim's wife was one of them. They would sit there and pray. And Sister Youngblood, you know, she mentioned me one day, said, Brother Watts, why'd you come to vacation? I mean, why'd you come to Bible study? I said, well, I can read the Bible, but I'm not understanding what I'm reading. Now, we can sit here and we can all read this one chapter, say John, verse 10. We all read it. And ask, what'd you get out of that? And to hear your thought on that and your thought on that, I didn't think that, but I got the same message out of the same reading. I mean, it was a lot of stuff like that that really opened my eyes to God. I tell anybody, I see it every time at the healing place. I still do my home group. I still go to the healing place every Sunday. I do my home group. It's a cocaine announcement. I chose cocaine announcement because had not I smoked crack, I still probably be drinking. You know, had not I smoked crack, I probably still have my wife and raise my kids the way a man's supposed to do. But and I just took that and I got to asking questions and I never owned my Bible and I got to come to Wednesday night and stuff and Sister Bonnie Woods, she prized me. She said, "Hey, brother, Wallace, I got you a Bible." Wow, put my name on it, she wrote in it. And I was so impressed with that, you know. So every night I had my Bible up, I'm reading and everything. And I could wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and I didn't know why. About the same time, same time. So I asked one night in Bible study, I said, let me ask you something. Why is it that I'm waking up every night about this time? And Sister Youngblood looked at me and said, that's the time God wants with you. I said, ma'am, see, that's the time I want some time with you. Pick up that Bible and read it. And wow, and I did. And I started reading. And, you know, I just opened it up and just started reading. And did I go back and sleep just as peaceful? Wake up on time and stuff. I started to recognize that God can do what he said he will do if you just trust him. If you just believe it, say it with your mouth and believe it in your heart, you know, you'll recognize it. And to the new person that's in recovery, don't give up on God, and he won't give up on you because he's able. Another one of your songs.
That's all right. All right. Well, look, brothers, I thank you so much for coming and sharing some of your story. And we pray that somebody who may be struggling in addiction and recovery hears this and they make a move to recovery in their lives. That's what this is all about. This is helping people to recover from addiction of whatever kind. So thank you for tuning in. This is Christ Church for our community, empowering victims of addiction. Thank you for tuning in with us. We'll see you next time.
It was real good. I like that. It's like having an AA meeting.